The most common question I get asked by far on SketchUp is how to make a cut list or a layout, or how I make them. And what I do is I manually move all of my parts onto my own custom layout once completed. It sounds like it takes a long time, but it really doesn't, and you get better results than using the cut list plugin for SketchUp. I don't use that. It's flawed. I don't like it. So let's first draw the trays that I'm going to make. This is all 1/2" plywood. So R for rectangle from the origin, and let's draw a rectangle. The second dimension is my longest, so let's change those dimensions to 16, 22 and 11 divided by 1/6. 22 and 11/16. That's the size of the bottom panel for my first tray, my largest tray. P for push pull, and let's pull this up. 0.5 inches, enter. Spacebar, triple click. G for component, enter. Now this is excuse me, this is 1/2" plywood, which is technically something like, I don't know, 15, 30 seconds or whatever it is. But in SketchUp, I always used the 1/2" dimension. Same with 3/4 plywood, I always use 3/4 inch plywood. Let's draw the sides real quick. R for rectangle from this corner to this bottom edge. The second dimension down here is my shortest of the two, so let's press comma 0.5 to only modify it. Enter. P for push pull. Let's pull this up 2.5 inches. Enter. Spacebar, triple click. G for component, enter. That side is the same as the other side, so let's press M for move. Control brings up copy, and click and drag to that side. Never draw what you can copy. It's always faster. The vast majority of the time it's faster. So in that same notion here, let's press Q for rotate, and starting at this bottom, let's go this direction. I'm going to press Control to bring up copy, type in 90, enter, and that'll make a copy 90 degrees, because this particular part is the exact same shape as this part, except it is a shorter distance. So before I modify this for the distance, let's right click and say make unique. You are no longer a copy of this. Spacebar, double click to edit the part, and I only want to select this face that I cannot see. And you can do that a couple ways. You can go over here and click on it, or what I find to be easier is to use a window. So if you click and drag left to right, you get a solid box, and that, or a solid rectangle, and that means it is a window. Whatever geometry is 100% inside that window will be selected. All of these horizontal lines and faces and such, they're not 100% inside this box, so they will not be selected. If I let go, only that particular face and this perimeter is selected. And that's a window, dragging left to right. But if you drag right to left, the boundary box becomes a dashed line, and that is a crossing, which means anything that is 100% in the area is selected, and also anything that crosses the perimeter is selected. So all of these faces right here that cross these dotted lines, as well as the actual edges, they will all be selected if I let go. There you go. Everything minus this face over here. So that's a window versus a crossing. I'll use a window to select only this face. P4 push pull, and I mentioned that because I'll use it a couple more times here. So I bring it back over here. Spacebar, click to get out. The front piece is the same as the back piece, so M for move. Control brings up copy. Copy it to the back. Excuse me. So this is my first tray. It's the largest tray of the three that I'm going to make. But the geometry is the same, just minus a couple dimensions. Just a couple dimensions are changed. So let's use a crossing to select everything but this right face, or this right side. M for move, control brings up copy, and let's move this over to here. Right click and say make unique. This group of parts is separate than this group of parts, so if I modify these, it won't modify them. This particular bottom piece is, what was my dimension? This one's 9 inches long or wide, so I press T for tape measure, referencing off of this edge right here, this direction, 9, enter. Spacebar, double click to edit the bottom tray, and I'll use a window to only select that face that I cannot see. P4 push pull, and I'll grab this edge down here, and I'm going this direction to my guideline right there. Spacebar, click to get out, and let's go ahead and delete this guideline. The left side is the same as the right side, so M for move, control brings up copy, and I'll grab this bottom right corner and drop it off right where it needs to be over here. As you can tell, the front and back pieces are too long, so let's spacebar, double click to edit the part, use a window to select the face that I cannot see, P4 push pull, and pull it back to where it needs to be. Spacebar, click to get out. So that's my second tray. My third tray is yet another size. and I'm going to have to recreate these two faces, or these two parts. So I'm going to use a crossing to only select these three, the bottom and then top and left. M4 move, control brings up copy, and copy it over there. Again, never draw what you can copy. It's always faster to do it that way. Vast majority of the time it's faster to do it that way. T for tape measure along this edge, and I'm going to go this direction. Excuse me. 12 inches for this tray. Enter. And top to bottom, I'm going to go from here down. This is, what was my measurement? 9 and 7 divided by 16. 9 and 7/16. So now this corner needs to be right here. Spacebar, double click to edit my part. Use a window to select the face that I cannot see. P4 push pull, and I'll pull it back. Oop, you see what I did there? I forgot to make this unique, so it's updating this right here. So let me back out of here. Select these three, right click, and say make unique. So that way you no longer update this. Now I can double click this bottom over here. Grab that face that I cannot see with a window, P4 push pull, and pull it back down to this edge. Spacebar, use a window to select this other face that I cannot see, P4 push pull, and just push it up to this intersection where this other guideline is. And spacebar, click to get out of my part, and that's the third tray shape. So, same as before, let's double click this to edit it, P4 push pull, and let's push this where it needs to be. Spacebar, click to get out. It's a lot of repetition here, but let's click on this side. M4 move, control brings up copy. The left and right are identical, so let's drop it off right there. Let's double click this back piece, use a window to select this face, P4 push pull, and let's push this where it needs to be. Spacebar, click to get out of your part. Click on the part again, M4 move, control brings up copy, and let's slide it, whoops. M4 move, grab this corner, control brings up copy, slide it where it needs to be, and I can delete my guidelines. So if I zoom out, that is the shape of or that's the size of all three of my trays that I'm going to complete. How do I turn this into a cut list? Well, let's just move these a little bit away from the origin. And just to determine or to distinguish tray 1, tray 2, tray 3, I'm going to make these different colors. So this tray is red, this tray, and I'm using my materials by the way, so it's either window materials or press B for bucket on the keyboard right there. It'll bring up this materials window, and I'm just using colors to distinguish. So we already did red, let's do green. Excuse me. Select the third tray, and let's do blue. Blue is fine. Let's draw the piece of plywood on the red-green plane, and let's drag it and drop it. My first dimension is the longest, so let's press 96,48, enter. Zoom out a little bit. Spacebar, click the middle, and delete it. I don't want that middle plane. I just want this perimeter boundary box to represent a sheet of plywood. I don't want to accidentally modify it and move the pieces as I'm moving stuff around, so let's make this a component. Let's triple click to select all jointing components here, or jointing pieces of geometry. G for component, enter. So now all of this becomes one, and I won't accidentally distort the shape as I'm working with this. I want to move or turn off the axis, that way that doesn't get confusing. And now let's move all of the parts into place. I always start with the dimension that is most commonly used, which with all of my side pieces and the bottom trays for these two, all of these pieces have that long dimension in common. So what I'm going to do is grab this first tray, M for move, control brings up copy, and I always like to copy one instead of working off of the original, just to keep the original intact. Q for rotate, and let's rotate it 90 degrees so that we're working with the first dimension here. Let's select this bottom tray piece and move this corner over to the origin. Sometimes if it won't snap to that piece, what I like to do is press up on the keyboard so it constrains to the blue axis and then references off of that particular plane, and now this should move right into place and snap into place. Excuse me. Now I will modify, or just rotate these parts into place. Q for rotate, and let's rotate this 90 degrees. M for move, and if it doesn't snap, then press up on the keyboard to constrain to the blue axis, referencing off of this plane. Now that they are in the same plane, let's move them into place. It's much easier once one is in a place to press Control for copy and just set one side by side than it is to rotate and move and all that stuff. So let's click on this one and delete it. Same with these pieces. Q for rotate. Let's rotate this 90 degrees and go along the red side over here. 90 degrees, M for move. Will it snap? No, it won't, so press up and reference off of that. Now let's bring it to the corner. Control brings up copy. Let's set one side by side and delete this. So like I said, this sounds like a lot, but it really reduces time for me in the shop. As figuring this out in SketchUp is much easier than pen and paper for me. May not be for you, but this is my process. We've got one tray in place. I want two, so let's select it with a crossing. M for move. Control brings up copy, and there's two trays. Visually, I can tell that this one's not going to fit right there, so let's go to this one. M for move. Control brings up copy. I only want one of these. And right off the bat, let's bring this bottom piece, M for move, constraining to the blue axis by pressing up, and let's put it on the same plane. And let's select this corner over here, put it in place. I can visually see automatically that if I stack the rest of these pieces, I'm going to be too high over here on this sheet of plywood. So let's stack them in this direction. So let's Q for rotate, rotate it like so, M for move, and put it into place. Now we can build out this direction. Grab this piece right here. It's the longest of the two remaining pieces, so let's rotate it 90 degrees. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. M for move. Grab this face, press up to constrain to the blue axis, and drop it off on that particular plane. Set one in place. Control brings up copy. There's two. Let's delete the other one. And Q for rotate. Let's put this one into place. 90 degrees. M for move. And press up. There you go. Like so. Copy another one like that. And that is the second, excuse me, the third tray in place. Still want one of these. So let's bring this M for move, control brings up copy down to here, Q for rotate, and let's rotate this 90 degrees. That way I still maintain my same dimension here of 22 and 11/16 and then 22 and 11/16. That wasn't the correct snap right there. But that way I have one strip, two strips that are the same size. M for move. Let's move this into place. There we go. And same process. Let me real quick Q for rotate. Let's rotate these 90 degrees. M for move. And grab this top face, press up on the keyboard to reference off of this face, and move it into. Come on now. There we go. Control brings up copy, set one side by side. Let's delete the other long one and repeat the process. Rotate this one around and rotate this one around and move it into place like so. Control brings up copy, set one side by side. Let's delete that. So that's how I make my cut list, or my layout diagram, I should say. But this one can be improved upon. So getting it into place is one thing, but then you get the freedom to optimize it however you want. And I prefer this because it lets me know exactly, or I can move pieces exactly the way I want them to be cut out on the sheet, which is beneficial because if I in my shop only have a sheet of plywood that's that big, well, the cut list plugin will go from a 4x8 sheet. I think it might be able to modify for smaller sheets, but I like to manually move everything because I get complete control. So this is the first layout, and I like to leave the first layout because I know I can improve upon it just by glancing at this. I've done this enough to determine that I can right off the bat, but that's not always the case. So I like to select everything, M for move, control brings up copy, and copy this layout over to here. That way if I move stuff around and it doesn't work out, all I have to do is delete this and I'm back to my original. Alright, so what I like to do is cut largest to smallest. Let's select all of this, M for move, and move it out of the way. And grab this piece down here. Move it into place. Grab this piece and move it into place. Grab this piece, move it into place. Largest to smallest. Excuse me. I'll treat all of this as a group. So let's just move this over to here and right click and flip it along the green direction. That way all these are lined up into this corner. So now I can batch all of my skinny pieces, my thin strips here. Let's bring these down, M for move, bring these over to here, grab these, M for move, bring them over to here, and I think this group is actually longer than, yep, longer than those. So just making things largest to smallest. And there you go. That is a much more efficient layout. And what I mean by that is, all right, first off, how would I cut this out? Let's go teeth for tape measure, and let's go, this dimension is 45 3/8. I would probably cut this piece of plywood at 46.5 inches. I would use a circular saw to cut this piece of plywood right down this line, leaving me with a much smaller, more manageable piece that I could put on the table saw. This side up against the fence, and I'll set my fence to 22 11/16, and I'll cut this whole strip out. The fence is still at 22 11/16, while then cut this whole strip out. Excuse me. And then I'll work down largest to smallest from there. So then I'll move my fence to 16, and I'll cut this piece out of this particular strip. Repeat the process with the fence set at 9, cut these two pieces, and then I'll work on this piece here, again going largest to smallest with the fence. So it does go largest, well, minus this 12 right here, but 1 2 3 and then this whole group here. Eventually I'll land on this smaller dimension and cut these strips out. Once I'm at this smaller dimension, then I can start batching out all of these strips. It's much more efficient to move the fence as little as possible than this layout, to where I would cut a 9-inch strip, then a 2.5, then a 2.5, 2.5, then a 9-inch, then a 2.5, 2.5. I think you understand the point I'm making there. So this layout is much more efficient, and it only took just a second to complete. And this whole process only took, I don't know, a couple minutes, 15, 16 minutes to figure this out and get it down perfectly with all of my dimensions right where, or all of my pieces right where I need them to be. So I personally prefer this method of manually moving everything out. If you have a large assembly with a large amount of pieces, then it's just going to take a little bit longer, but it's more efficient in the long run as far as I'm concerned, because I don't have to worry about pen and paper, and I can easily move stuff around. So anyway, that's the process that I take. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great day.